If I ever have kids, we're not going to have traditional discipline in my household. No sitting in the corner or being grounded for a week. No, my kids are going to play Alone in the Dark on Xbox 360 as punishment. You said a bad word, 15 minutes of Alone in the Dark. You talked during the spelling test at school, half an hour, Alone in the Dark. You pulled your sister's hair, 2 hours, Alone in the Dark. Trust me, threaten your kids with having to play this game, and they will behave instantly. I would rather be grounded than be forced to play this game, and that is not a joke or an exaggeration. But what makes this game so bad? Almost everything. And before I get any further, I will go ahead and say that, like most Xbox users, I did not finish this game. I got pretty close to the end, but I did not have the willpower to finish this trash game after sludging through it for 8 hours. And again, according to achievements, the vast bulk of players didn't even make it as far as I did, and beating the game gives you a rare achievement. I personally got stuck on level 7, where the game sends you on a wild goose chase to try to burn weird tree roots, which are scattered around a horribly designed open world in the most obtuse and hard to reach places imaginable. And yes, for some unexplainable reason, this is an open world game. This should not be an open world game. The world layout is weird and it feels really forced. Like Atari, the publishers mandated a open world for marketing purposes only. Like, hey, look at us, we have a huge open world survival horror game. And don't get me wrong, open world survival horror games can be awesome when done right. Just look at Deadly Premonition. That is one of the underground goats of survival horror, and the open world is very well designed and laid out if you can get over the janky map. So a open world game in this genre can be really good, but again, the world of Alone in the Dark just feels empty in a bad way, and it just feels really forced. And on a similar topic, driving. Alone in the Dark should have had great car driving because a lot of detail and thought was put into making the cars feel immersive. You can enter a first-person view inside of the car where you can turn on the radio, turn on interior lights, you can search the glove compartment for loot, you can change which seat that you take in the car, you can manually hotwire via a little mini game if you don't have keys. But the driving is crap. All of the cars feel like their tires were soaked in butter, driving on roads covered in soap. Now, in this game's defense, I did read that the PS3 version, which came out way later than the Xbox version, actually did fix the vehicle sections. But this is mainly an Xbox channel, and on Xbox, the handling is dookie. Not to mention that enemies can jump on your roof and it is really hard to get them off while they attack you. You can either drive really fast, which is hard because again, butter-soaked tires, or you can slam into something at a high speed. But this damages your health, and it only shakes baddies off for a whopping 5 seconds before they jump right back on your roof. Not a good experience, I do not recommend it. Anyways, whenever you're not skidding around the half-baked open world, this game is attempting to be the least scary survival horror game to ever exist. I have seen multiple kids' movies and shows that are way scarier than this M-rated game, and that is not a joke. There are episodes of VeggieTales that still give me PTSD from my childhood. That one episode with the hand and the feet, Alone in the Dark, got nothing on that.
Ah!
What?
The hand! Ah!
What?
The feet!
Or Narnia. Both Prince Caspian and Dawn Treader have scenes that are scarier than this entire game. and they're both movies for kids, which is really sad. Alone in the Dark is the great grandfather of survival horror, and its big budget AAA high profile return to gaming was survival might be scary if you're 3 years old. This game, it never even tries to be scary. There are almost no jump scares, almost no creepy environments, no eerie music. Shoot, the music is more upbeat and happy than anything else. There was like a single, almost scary part in the entire game where you were trying to turn on the lights in one room by being attacked by a couple of monsters, and it was barely scary. So yeah, this game failed pretty hard in the horror department. But it fails even worse with the controls. I get that survival horror is supposed to have clunky controls. That's part of what the genre is. But Alone in the Dark has the most complex control scheme of any game I have ever played, to the point most Kinect games have better controls than this game. I spent roughly 8 hours with this game and I still do not understand the controls. Now when I first started this game, I kinda thought maybe this would be like I Am Alive. The controls are kinda complex in that game, but they do feel natural enough, and you can break them in within a couple of hours. Not with this piece of crap. This game has 4 different control schemes that all vary depending on what you're doing. For example, when you're just walking around the world, X is jump. That alone feels kind of odd, but whatever, I can manage that. But when you're climbing up a rope or a cable, jump is the B button if you want to jump off the cable, but X is to hop over obstacles, I think. Or for sprinting, you use A to sprint. Again, it feels unnatural, but it's manageable. Until you step into a car. Okay, the game has established that A means speed up. You're supposed to have this memorized. But when you get behind the wheel, A is the handbrake, the button that you've been taught to connect with speed. It's suddenly the button that you use to stop or slow down. And for combat, oh dear. First, this game has surprisingly very little combat, which made getting combat footage kind of hard. But putting that aside, this game has 4 weapon classes: guns and spray bottles, throwables, and melee weapons. Guns are the most straightforward, even though there are only 2 pistols in the game, and honestly, I cannot tell you the difference between them. But anyways, in order to use a gun, you have to first equip it. Then you press Y to enter first person mode, and you use RT to shoot. But of course, you cannot aim down your sights. That would be way too easy. Instead, you have a semi-accurate laser sight, which is decent, I guess. As for spray bottles, you can only use these in first person. You basically hold a can of something like bug spray up to a lighter, and then you press RT to make a miniature flamethrower. This turns out to be the most effective way to kill some enemies, since humanoid foes can only be killed with fire, and your can of mosquito repellent can kill them almost instantly with 1 or 2 quick squirts. For throwable weapons, you have to be in third person mode, and you use LT and the right joystick to aim, and I believe RT to throw. Again, the controls are insanely complicated, so that's why I'm saying I think, because I don't fully understand this game. Anyways, for melee combat, you cannot keep melee weapons in your inventory. You have to find them lying around. These would be things like sledgehammers, pieces of wood, chairs, or axes. The controls here play like Never Did, where you enter third-person mode and you swing the right joystick around to swing your weapon, which is as clunky as it sounds. Really, the best way to use melee weapons is to light a chair on fire and then poke enemies with it, since again, fire instantly kills most humanoid baddies. Now, for non-human enemies like bats or spiders, it's usually best to just deal with them by shooting them, but you usually have to find and burn their nest, which will be instantly decimated with a single squirt of your Rust-Oleum and lighter combo. As far as boss battles go, one was actually really good, in which you had to chuck Molotov cocktails at a giant bat nest while being attacked by bats. And it was actually really fun, being one of the few highlights of this game. Another boss was some giant humanoid monster who was super annoying. Oh, did I mention Molotovs? How do you go about acquiring these in Alone in the Dark? That would be via crafting. This game is a decently in-depth crafting system in which you can combine things from your inventory, like combining bullets and alcohol to make flaming rounds, or putting a rag into a quote explosive bottle to make a Molotov. It's actually a bit more in-depth than it looks, and your inventory layout is kind of cool, having your character keep all of his stuff in jacket pockets. But like all things in Alone in the Dark, this game found a way to screw everything up, as the crafting is really weird in that you have to craft items in a specific order sometimes. You want to put double-sided tape on a bottle, you gotta select the tape first. You can't select the bottle first. That's where my game was glitching out. On a somewhat similar topic to your inventory, this game has a surprisingly in-depth healing system, in which you have to manually treat all of your wounds by applying healing spray or bandages to every injury, versus in most games where you have something like press X to use a med kit. This game makes you manually patch yourself up, although the controls when surveying your wounds could be a little iffy, so this game does have this small thing going for it. Also, in a similar nature to the Batsuit in the Arkham games, this title actually remembers your injuries, and it leaves you with scars and torn clothes the more beat up that you get, which was actually really impressive. In fact, I would argue that this is more impressive than the Arkham Batsuit, as that game is programmed to have your Batsuit take damage at very specific times. But Alone in the Dark remembers unscripted injuries, which again is actually really impressive. And graphically, this game ain't bad looking, with pretty impressive visuals for a game of its time, especially when you consider that Kane and Lynch came out not too long before this game did, and it looks awful. But that's where my positives with this game reach their end. And going back down the road of things that Alone in the Dark does wrong, the story is just bad, just poorly written, no. And some of the dialogue that your character has is super cringe. I had trouble recording audio, or I would show this clip, but at one point your dude's VA had a voice crack that gave the impression of, am I actually being asked to read this? Like his tone of voice really said, oh my word, this writing is so bad, why did I sign this contract? And the soundtrack isn't much better. It has a couple decent tunes, but it is not fitting for a horror game in the slightest. I would say that one or two tracks would not be out of place in a My Little Pony game. And I play My Little Pony games. I should know. Performance-wise, this is one of the glitchiest games of all time, about on par with Rise of Kong, but at least you can kind of laugh at that game. I had several soft lock glitches in which I had to restart levels and or checkpoints over and over again, which made this miserable experience take way longer than it should have. But I read that the PS3 version runs a little bit better. but the 360 version is nearly broken. Not completely broken, but it does teeter on the edge of being unplayable. All things said, this is the worst horror game on the 360 that received a physical release, and I give it a 3 out of 10 by my grade scale. Now, it's not the worst horror game on the console, as there are a couple XBLA horror games that are worse than this, but that's about it. Funny enough, this game bombed with review outlets at launch, and in classic 2000s Atari fashion, they threatened to sue companies that gave it bad reviews. Everyone called Atari's bluff, and nothing came of these threats, although the game somehow managed to sell over 1 million copies, which is surprising. What's even more surprising is that Matt McMuscles has not done a What Happened on This Game and/or series yet. Anyways, as far as a good survival horror game on the 360 that I could recommend, look up Deadly Premonition. It is leaps and bounds better than this piece of crap, and I have reviewed that game. Link in the end card if you want to watch it. And honestly, this game was kind of sad. I want to get into the Alone in the Dark series, but most of the games are kind of hard to access. The OG game was on the 3DO, and the PC version has unbearable controls, and none of the games in the series up to this point were released on Xbox, and I currently don't have a device that can play the 2024 reboot, despite owning the game physically. Who knows, maybe someday this series will see a comeback. Anyways, thanks for watching and for putting up with my bad voice, it means a lot. And thanks to everyone who voted on my poll as to which horror game I should review next. For those new here, I mostly review and discuss Xbox 360 games, so feel free to sub if that sounds interesting. And follow me on GameRam for hints at upcoming videos and behind the scenes stuff. As far as our Bible verse of the day, I read Genesis 2:24 NIV. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. And like always, none of my vids are made by robots. Keep YouTube human and only watch man-made vids. And I never give permission for my voice and likeness to be copied and altered by robots in any way. Jesus loves you. Take care. Keep the 360 alive. Peace. If I ever have kids, we're not going to have traditional discipline in our household. No sitting in the... Now, whenever I first started this game, I kinda thought that maybe this would be like I Am Alive. The controls are kinda